So, Robert, I have done a little research, went through your profile, did a little homework. So, but yeah, usually this is the first question that I ask every founder. That let's go back and I'm gonna take you to nostalgic path, going back to your high school, right after you were just graduating from your high school or like entering the college. The time was very different, and I think it was early 2000s in your case.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
how was everything at that time in Sweden? And were you already certain that you wanted to break into games, or that is something that eventually happened while you were in your university?
Yeah, I could never dream about going into games. Actually, when I joined university, I joined a Master of Science education called Media Technology, and I was entirely new back then. I went to the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm,
Yep.
and when I joined in 2001, that was the middle of the dot-com crash, if you remember that. It's a
Yep.
long time ago, but
Yep.
Sweden had some really good tech companies like Ericsson and those stocks had just gone up for years and years, and it felt like tech industry was really booming. And then suddenly the dot-com crash came, and everything changed basically. Because when I joined university, I was thinking like most engineers, civil engineers, they would join Ericsson, and I thought that's probably where I'm going to end up too, doing technology stuff. So everything changed during my education there, and I could never think about working in the games industry because even though there were game companies in Stockholm, they were not that big. There were a few, obviously, but like getting in there was for me sort of a pipe dream. So I never thought I would end up there. But then during my university years, I joined a student organization called Swedish Game Awards, which did a student competition for games, and they had sponsors from the game industry. So that's where I got to know some of the companies during my time at the university, and realized that maybe I could work in this industry after all. So it ended up with me being the project manager for that student competition 1 year. And after that, I got to write my master's thesis at DICE, which was probably the biggest game developer in Sweden at that time, and probably one of the biggest still.
Right.
And that's where I got my foot in. And also during my last year in university, I got a tester job at Electronic Arts, and they worked very closely with DICE at that time. DICE was an independent company, but Electronic Arts did the publishing for all their titles. So I was just very lucky to get that tester job during the summer there, and that one thing led to another, and I got my foot in the door basically.
Got it. Okay, so like just comparing it with the other industries, because like you said, dot-com bubble was there, and like gaming still felt like a risk, like a big bet that you're gonna take with your career. And what gave you that confidence at that time? Like there could have been an easier way out, like maybe into web development or something else.
No, I think you're right. Like web development was big then, and also many people went into like banking or other things like that, where you could probably make a more traditional career and probably make more money as well. But I choose to follow my passion. I had been gaming since I was a kid. I had consoles. My parents are also engineers, and they bought me a computer before I even got the console. So I started making stuff on my Atari when I was a kid, and playing a lot of games. So games has been a passion my entire life. So I just felt like, I can make decent money here. It's not going to be groundbreaking, but I can at least make a living, and I will have a lot of fun doing it. It was like paid free time. I get to do what I love, and I get paid for it, and doing it with amazing people, because people go to the games industry not because it pays the most, but because they want to be there.
Right.
I think even Elon Musk wrote that he prefer hiring engineers from the gaming industry because they're the best, because they need to solve problems in a way that you don't get to do in other industries. And it's really true. I have met so many amazing people in this industry, and still do to this day. So it's totally worth it from that standpoint too.
Right. And I think Elon can relate more to it, because even he started by building a game back when he was in South Africa. Right. Cool. Interesting. So, okay. So you started with the project manager role that you mentioned,
Yeah.
and then there was the stint at Electronic Arts where you were testing, right?
Yeah.
Localization tester. So how was that experience, and is like was that kind of an internship or a full time role?
It's like a project employment sort of. So you're employed per game. So basically, just at the very end of a game project, they hire testers from different countries, and they put them together and just test the game version. So basically, the last maybe 1 to 3 months, that's where you do the localization testing. So that was my foot into the industry, and for me it was amazing because it felt like you were in some kind of a camp or something. It's like you go away, you work really hard. We start at 9 in the morning and end at 9 in the evening. You just play the game entire day, the testers, and it's a nice community between the testers from different countries. So where we were testing in Sweden, and we had all the Nordic people coming in and testing it here. And that was like fun. We had a Danish guy, a Norwegian guy, a few other Swedes, and like testing different games at the same time. And just this small little community of us playing games that are not yet released and getting paid for it. That was just, wow, this is cool. Then immediately after I tested the first game, I got another tester job where I got to go to England. And then we had testers from entire Europe that stay together and work together there, and it was also a nice experience. Then of course they had to set us up with hotels and everything, so you basically worked more than 12 hours per day, but it was totally worth it. It was totally fine. I was so young, I had no family, no commitments. I got to do something I loved, so great first experience in the game industry, if you ask me.
Right, got it. And how young were you back then? Like just coming out of college and joining?
I was probably 24 years old. So my last year in university, I turned 25. I remember the year I joined DICE in 2006. So I was a tester in 2005. So this was a sort of a summer job at the end of the education.
Got it. Okay. So now coming to the longest stint, DICE, and that's also the place where you found your co-founders, I'm guessing. So let's start from 2006. So you entered as a producer, so and plus project manager experience in past. So one thing was sorted, that you clearly knew that you wanted to go into production. And one, like, how did you bring that clarity, and how did you get that knack of production? And then the first stint.
I think I did a very small stint. I had not written it in my CV, but I did a small stint as a designer too at one point on the first iteration of Battlefield 3. But when I joined DICE, I did it as an associate producer, so handling the localization, because I knew the localization part from a tester perspective, and I could see that there's so many things you can do better, and like help the testers, which would in the end get a better result. The testers will have an easier way of testing the game, and the end quality will be better. So that was my focus. But what I really wanted to do was to design things. I mean, I had to play games. I thought I could design things. I had a lot of interesting games. I played Battlefield competitively during my time at university, so I knew a lot about it. So I did like maybe a year or two in there, and what I designed was never released because the game project that I worked on was rebooted several times. But what it led to, when they rebooted that game, they needed help on a Harry Potter game in England. So I got to travel there, live there for a couple of months, do the localization, dev, like a production for that game. And then when I came back, there still wasn't a role for me. So that's where we had this little game team called Battlefield 1943. It was codenamed Beach. And they didn't have anyone to handle like the development director task, which is basically project management. So they're like, maybe you want to take care of this then, because we don't really have anything else for you. I'm like, yeah, that sounds fun. I'll do that. And that was great. That's where I really found what I should be doing. I should be handling the plans, budgets, following up with the team, what they need, help ensure them that everything moves forward, tracking things. So yeah, that's where I first got to test it in a really small environment. The team was maybe at most 20 people.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, so very, very small and perfect environment for me to test things, to learn, to grow, because this was my first manager role, really, where I had a
Mm,
team to run.
mm,
So yeah, that's where I found it. And I think my personality is like that too. I like to keep things organized. I like to keep things move forward. And I also love working with people.
mm,
And like the in the games industry, like there are like people are incredibly talented, but also a bit quirky, and they have their small little things. And I just love that people are so different and they have their own little quirks, and they're just super passionate and talented. And like getting that kind of band playing together, I really love that, and make sure they're happy and so on. So yeah.
got it. Interesting. And all this time, starting from like where you were playing Battlefield to now being part of the production team,
Yeah.
and like the development director of the whole thing. So like how was this experience? And like these were one of the biggest IPs that any developer, any producer, any game developer would want to work for, right?
Yeah.
So like how was that whole experience?
As for me, it was a dream come true. I mean, I started playing Battlefield 1942 when I was in
Yep.
university, and
Mm,
as I said, we had a clan. I was a clan leader. We were one of the top clans in Sweden and played like competitively on like different LAN events and so on. So getting to work on these games was like a dream come true.
mm,
I knew that this is what I wanted to do, and I was very starstruck the first time I stepped into DICE and met these people that had built that game. So and getting to be part of it. In the end, you maybe take it for granted, but even now, looking back at it and seeing all my plaques where that says like you worked on this game, it's like still feels a bit unreal. I'm super proud of it, and having worked on that, and I had so much fun doing it too. I want to create more games like Battlefield.
got it. Interesting. So okay, zooming out from here a little, I'll come back to this. Like how you progress to senior development director, and then the director product development and head of development eventually. But
Yeah.
zooming out from here a little, now that let's say 5 years in the industry already, and like you are doing really good and nice. um, One question is around your personal life, like parallelly, how people around you assumed or thought of what you were doing for a living, because that is one problem that I feel that people still face. uh, you know and but this is like we are talking about like 10 years ago, right? A decade or more. So what was the perception?
I think I've been very fortunate that either people like, yeah, games, I don't care, or oh, games, that's amazing, tell me more. And you could imagine like both my parents like being engineers and like maybe you should do get into some kind of traditional career, but both were incredibly supportive. My mom is a software developer, and like she was super supportive of
uh,
like as long as I did well in school, I could play as much games I wanted, which
mm,
I think was like a fair philosophy. Like as long as I don't like put school aside and like do good, they're like, yeah, sure, go ahead. If you're happy and you're doing well, that's fine. So I don't think I ever suffered from anyone thinking, like, oh, that's not a real career or whatever. It's more like people are either indifferent or actually supportive or excited.
mm, got it. Okay, so the second part of the question was that uh, you stayed in DICE for like 13 years, more than 13
Yeah.
years. That
Yeah.
was a really long time.
Yes.
And in between, you might have got a lot of enticing offers from here and there. So how
Yeah.
difficult was it to stick to the company for this long?
So for most of the time, it wasn't that difficult. I mean, I stayed mostly because of the people and the games we made, of course. And of course, I always only want to stay when I feel that I'm growing and learning new things and getting to do new exciting things. That's one of the things I feel is it's important in every part of life, right? Like you want to feel that you're moving forward, not just standing in the same spot. And as long as I could get that within DICE, I
Mm,
felt like, yeah, that's like I have more to learn here, and there are people here that can teach me that. So that made it sort of easier to stay. So yeah, that's why in the end I wanted to embark on my new journey where I got to do things my way entirely almost. uh, but yeah, that's what made me
got
make the decision in the end.
it. Mm. Okay, nice. So, okay, one more question. That gaming industry is cursed for this crunch culture, and we are known for crunch culture.
Yeah.
But Europe, for some reason, and Scandinavian countries, for some reason, are also known for their work-life balance, everything.
Yeah.
So now, uh, like, how was this experience for you in Sweden? Like, did you ever experience the crunch culture, and all this time?
Yeah, definitely. I've experienced it. As I mentioned, as a tester, we worked more than 12-hour
Was it?
days. And
Right.
I did that during many years at DICE too. And in my early life, I didn't see it as a big problem. Since when you're young and healthy, you can probably work quite a lot without getting burnout or getting any side effects. But not everyone can do it. Obviously, I had no problem with it. But as I grew up, I met my wife. We had kids. All of these things became harder. As you say, the Nordic countries, they are well known for their work-life balance. There's this you can do the childcare with your kids, and it's expected that both mom and dad take care of the
Right.
baby when it's small, and you do that for over a year. So people take
Right.
parental leave for quite long times. And I can say I was a really bad role model with my first kids there. I worked a lot, especially during the summer when everyone else was free. So because we were usually finishing games back then. So I think, yeah, crunch culture was a problem, but it was also acknowledged, and I think it's a lot better. And I think also in the end, at least some of the teams we did not have as crazy crunches as we had earlier in my career, so it became better. But I think everyone needs to strive for getting away from crunch culture. I think crunch culture can be okay if we do it in smaller time frames and for a particular milestone or whatever. Then it might actually be good for the team to come together, but then you also need to plan for some downtime afterwards to get people to rest up and get back.
Right. Makes sense. Yep. Okay, so now coming back to DICE and the time when you met your co-founders, um, this and plus now you were in your senior leadership. So how was your role transitioning, and overall, like, when did you realize that now you wanted to move out and start something of your own?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, my first game was Battlefield 1943, and I was a lead DD for that. It was a small team, and I did a lot of smaller things as a DD there too. I did all the expansion packs for Battlefield 3. I helped out on the main games, but I've never, or in the beginning, I wasn't in charge of them. But in the end, I became promoted to senior development director. So that's when you oversee several development directors. And there, in the end, I got responsibility for building the Star Wars franchise within DICE. And that was super amazing experience working on a Star Wars game with a great team, also a very, very large team. And the next step after that was to DPD, or Director of Product Development. Right. And that's when I started overseeing Star Wars Battlefront 2, and then in the end, head of development, looking over all development in the entire studio and working with the leaders from all the different teams and so on. And yeah, that was a good role, but it's also very stressful, and it was also pretty far from development. I did not get to interact as much with the teams I was used to. I did learn new things though, and it was a great experience, but in the end, I think I missed a lot of getting close to the teams. And trying to keep learning and developing. I felt it was time to move on and try something new. So I decided there that it's time for something new. And turns out there was a few of my colleagues that I had gotten to know during my years there that was feeling the same, and we decided to embark on this new journey and start up Wild Games. And we could also see, like, we have been making console and AAA games for PC games for so many years, but we have never made anything on mobile, and all of us were playing more and more mobile games. That's actually it's the biggest growing platform of all. We believe also, like, coming from our background, there's so many new things we could bring into that platform. So we felt like there's a good fit here for us to learn something new and bring something new to a new market. And yeah, that's the way it happened.
Got it. Okay, so now two of your co-founders are, I think, developers, programmers who have been programmers all their career, and
Yeah.
you come with a, production background.
Yeah.
So, plus that small knack of design that you had, now do you get to practice that here at Wild Games?
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, since we're so small, we're only 9 people, and we play the games quite a lot. I have a lot of feedback. One of the games we're building is a multiplayer shooter, and I have a lot of thoughts on those games. So, but I'm also making it clear, like, I'm not the lead of these projects, so my feedback shouldn't be like more listened to than anyone else's. If you think the feedback is good, go with it. But if you don't, like, you go with what you believe is right for the games. But I'm not that kind of leader that just sits quietly and let them go off. I'm also, like, my project management is more about also making sure there's a plan in place, that we deliver according to what we say we will do, and all of those things. So I try to focus more on that. And also, since we're so small, I'm like the CEO who handles everything from IT to marketing to
finance.
To finance, legal, hiring. So I have my my hands in every single part of the company, basically.
Right. And now you're back hands-on fully.
Yeah, it's super hands-on. I do a lot of things for the team, and I also try to keep an eye on the horizon, see what trends are out there, what tools are out there, and so on, so we can move faster and be quicker, and see how we can iterate quicker. Because one of the things having such a small team as we do now with very senior people is that we can be so quick on doing new things. More like, there's no red tape. We don't need to ask anyone. We just do it and release it and see what happens. And that's a huge relief.
Interesting. Got it. Okay, Robert, I think I've asked a majority of questions that I've had in my head, and pretty inspiring. So anything else that you would want to mention that I did not ask but played important role in your journey all this time?
Oh, I'm sure I've forgotten something, but I think I mentioned it all. That I've always been playing games. I played competitively in Battlefield. I learned so much at DICE and loved working there. But in the end, we found it was time to move on. And now I'm thriving and learning new things again, which feels great. I mean, I would, we love what we're doing, and we want to keep doing it. So we hope to hit it big soon.
All right. And few people that you would want to mention in your story, maybe we can tag them and give some credits.
I mean, feel free to tag Wild Games, I think. I think that should be
sure. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.